Hey folks, walk with me. Well, I think I've mentioned a few times on this channel, or a couple times at least, how I can have a tendency to be in a somewhat perpetual state of panic. In the sense of just having this feeling or sense of dread about something, oftentimes about something that is sort of very much concocted in my head, or something that seemingly wouldn't or shouldn't warrant such a strong reaction. And obviously, this being the case and having to still try to function in the world, I've explored a lot of different things to try to get some sense of calm, quiet, reconnection, groundedness, essentially a sense of safety back into the body, right? Where the body is gut-wrenched, heart pounding, head pounding, whatever it is. Sometimes even sort of screwing with the vision, right? I've had that several times before, where my vision just starts to get all blurry. And to be able to try to reconnect with the body and get some sort of grip on that physical response that you're having can definitely at least give you an opportunity, like a little window, if you will, of opportunity to calm yourself down, reevaluate the situation, think about it from maybe a different perspective. Whereas if you're really unable to get a grip on the physical stuff, at least in my experience, it seems almost impossible, or maybe very much impossible, to be able to do anything except for get yourself more and more and more worked up, right? Because at some point you have whatever it is that you're panicking about, or you're just having this sort of generalized sense of panic. You can't even particularly tie it to a given thing. It just sort of seems to always be there. And then at some point, at least for me, in the worst instances, I can then start to get a sort of panicky about the panic, right? And so it's just some sort of a vicious cycle there. So I've done a lot of reading, watching, listening to try to take in some things that may work for these types of situations, and in an effort to try to find what works for me, right? Because you try to consume 100 different ways to approach the same challenge, knowing that, if you're lucky, maybe you'll find 1, 2, 3, 4 of those 100 that work for you. And so before I talk specifically about my couple of things that seem to help best, I would encourage you to look for things. So you have sort of, a lengthy list of things to try, and not to give yourself a to-do list, not to make this yet another thing that you have to accomplish, but think of those as a toolkit, or as a list of resources that you can tap into when you need. And just know that some of them may not work at all. And so you may need to be open to adjusting, going on to try the next thing, and seeing what seems to resonate with you. And there's a lot of resources for that, even on YouTube. I personally have found Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I've found his framing around a lot of this stuff to be very helpful, but there are certainly others. I would just say, from a lay person who's not trying to pretend to be a doctor or a psychologist or a mental health professional. I'm sharing my own story. I would just say, just be aware who you're getting your information from online, and if they are giving you ideas and concepts, to try to do what you can to vet that information a little bit and make sure that it's coming from a place of, you know, some sort of grounded in reality or science-based, or at least that there have been studies looking into these things, etc. Okay, so for me, one of the things that works really well is sort of a chanting or a choral endeavor. What I mean by that is, you know, if I could, I think it would be great to go to an in-person sing-along, if you will, for lack of a better term, but it could be something like that there's a chanting practice, or a music event where there's a strong engagement from the audience. And so I have a song or two that I like to put on that they're basically like, you know, they're very repetitive and it lasts for 20 minutes or so. And the singer will sing a thing, and then the crowd will sing the thing. And so I participate with the crowd, sort of try to pretend like I'm there amongst people. I think if I were literally there in person amongst people, it would probably be even worlds better than just doing it with a speaker. But the accessibility of that and the you know, the ability to sort of habitualize it, to make it a routine, is more possible if you're able to do it at home and whatnot. So that's one. Chanting, you know, I like the ohms, but there's even like the ahs and the hues, you know, this sort of like vibration, and just to be able to make these sounds and carry a tune or whatever you're doing, you know, there is strong interplay with your breath that has to take shape there. And so that and the resonance of it, you know, it just seems to me there's some sort of calming, grounding element to it that sort of lowers the temperature, if you will, on some of this somatic response that I'm having. So that would be one. And there's plenty of good ones on YouTube, or, you know, if you do Apple Music or Amazon Music or whatever. But just look for different things. If you really want my couple of suggestions, put a comment below and I can tell you what I typically go to for those things. So that's the sound and the breathing and that. And then the other one that's more sort of full body is Qigong, which sometimes I will then do Tai Chi. But those two, the Qigong and the Tai Chi, again, you can find pretty solid routines on YouTube. I often gravitate to like the 8 to 15 minute range, because again, I'm trying to sort of like release, I'm trying to sort of get a grip. And so I'm not trying to make it like a workout. I'm trying to reconnect, reduce the symptoms that I'm experiencing, and be able to utilize that reduction of frantic nature to, again, then start to play with the mental component, the psychological component of it. But yeah, Tai Chi, Qigong, and sometimes, you know, Bessel talks often about yoga. And this seems like an obvious one, right? That people use yoga to find some connection to their body. Certainly often incorporates breathing and, trying to feel some sense of safety, some sense of comfortability in your body again, to offset all of the things that happen like we spoke about before, the head pounding, blurred vision, racing breath or shallow breath, gut punch sort of feeling, just heart pains, any of these things, tingling. So yoga is sort of another obvious one. For whatever reason, again, it's just maybe boils down to a preference kind of thing. I do prefer, at least at this point, Qigong and Tai Chi over yoga, but I also had a period of time in my life where I did a lot of yoga, and so maybe it's sort of somehow tied into that a little bit too. Is the Qigong and the Tai Chi have some element of almost like an element of surprise to me still, because I haven't been doing it for very long, and certainly haven't done it in any capacity where I felt like I was having sort of a teacher-student experience. So so those are mine: Tai Chi, Qigong, and then some sort of chanting or sort of like crowd choral singing. But I think that the repetition and sort of variance in cadence can sort of amplify the breath control with the noise making and the resonance that happens with those things. So that's what I try to look for. Some variance of cadence throughout the song, and something very repetitive, and ideally something that is sort of call and answer in nature. All right, folks. Well, if you walked with me, that's something else that I try sometimes. I don't know that it really does the same thing, but I'm sure it's doing something. But if you walked with me, we got about 12 minutes in, so not too bad at all. If you didn't walk with me, no worries. Thanks for watching this whole way. I almost fell off the edge here. And I will see you in the next video.